Awesome. Okay, so hello. Thank you for joining me today. So, I think to get started, I was just going to do a little recap of the first time we met. So, the first time we met, I
Okay.
went to a little info session about Ellie's Place, and you were there and you were talking, and it was a great session, very informational. But I was noticing in the room that there weren't really that many young people. And I thought, well, Ellie's Place is supposed to be a place for young people with severe mental illness. So, are there young people involved in this? And thankfully, from your presentation, I thought you were very knowledgeable, but also very approachable. So I remember coming up to you at the end of the session and saying, are there young people involved in this program? And you said, not yet, but we're really hoping to get some young people involved. So do you want to be a part of that? And I was like, yes, that sounds amazing. And then I think it was after that we met and we came up with the idea of a peer advisory. And since then, it's been really great working with you. So, for anyone that is tuning into this that doesn't know, um, I'm joined here with Ellis, who's the executive director of Ellie's Place. And then my name is Emma, and I'm a current volunteer on the peer advisory board. So, to get started, a little personal question. In reflection of the past year, I think it's been a really difficult year for a lot of people. Is there anything that you've learned about yourself?
Anything I've learned about myself? Um, well, I guess I've just reinforced what I knew, that I can be very self-sufficient, but I really miss personal contact. I can't believe how much I've lived on Zoom, meeting people from all over Ontario and Canada and the States and even the world, having chats with friends and colleagues and and keeping in touch through Zoom, because I think it's just to reinforce how important it is, even though I can be very self-sufficient and independent, I still love personal contact. So I think that's probably one of the biggest learnings over the past year, is how important it is to me to still keep that contact, even though I can. I've always joked that I can go off to an island with a book and I'd be very happy, but not really.
Yeah. No, it's definitely important. I feel the exact same way. I do love to read and I do love my own time, but personal connection is important for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so moving into the focus of Ellie's Place, throughout your
Mhm.
time as executive director, what have you learned about the need for a residential rural place like Ellie's Place?
Emma, before I started at Ellis Place, I took a few years off, but going back to my career, working in mental health agencies, I was always very aware of the gap in service for young adults. As a child up to the age of 18, if you needed some sort of residential treatment, there was a large system out there in Ontario to provide you with the support you needed. When you turn 18, if you still needed that service, and often if you had a serious mental illness, you would need it at some point in your early adult life, there was very, very, very little. There's the hospital-based 6-week programs, which is really helpful to some people, but those that need something more longer term, more intensive, it just doesn't exist in Ontario or even in Canada. I knew that from my work, working with kids, but when I started working with Ellie's Place, I heard from so many parents and from some young people as well, as you helped us get the peer advisory council going and started hearing from young people in addition to their parents. Um, I just heard it tenfold how desperate young people are for that type of service. And it just became more and more evident the longer I was with Ellie's Place, how important this type of service is for a certain group of young adults. Excuse me.
Okay, so I guess in response to that, throughout your time at Ellie's Place and even before that, with all of your work in the mental health field, have you seen a shift in the mental health landscape in Canada?
Um, haven't seen a shift towards meeting this particular need, unfortunately. It's still an incredibly important gap. I've spoken to individuals that have gone to the States. They were fortunate. Their parents were able to afford it, or for the odd individual, they were able to get government funding for it. But the majority of people are desperately looking for a service closer to home and just can't find it. So there hasn't been a shift. There's certainly a shift in awareness of the need for mental health services. There's certainly a shift in funding from the government for certain mental health services. But for this particular service, which is a small niche service for a small group of young adults who have a serious mental illness, there still hasn't been a recognition of the importance of it. And we haven't seen funding coming forward at this time yet.
Okay, yeah, I definitely agree with the shift in awareness and funding I didn't know about, but I would add education too. I think even just since I got involved in the mental health field maybe 5 years ago, I've seen a shift, which is definitely great. But I agree that there's still a significant lack of resources. So it's nice to see something like Ellie's Place in the works. In terms of your role as executive director, what exactly drew you to that role for Ellie's Place?
Um, it was exactly what we've just been talking about, knowing for so many years that there's this incredible gap for all of these youth who are graduating out of the children and youth mental health system and still had a need. And this particular need for the most vulnerable of young adults who have their whole lives ahead of them, and yet they see that those exciting potential slipping through their fingertips because they just can't get a handle on their serious mental illness enough that they can carry on with their education, carry on with their friendships, carry on with recreational activities, carry on with life, and move into adulthood, and their illness is holding them back. And they've tried everything, um, and nothing works. When Ellie's Place approached me 3.5 years ago and asked me to become their first executive director and asked me to help them bring their dream to life, I took a look at the model that they wanted to replicate here in Canada. They'd done a lot of research in the States and around the world. They had hired a researcher who did a comprehensive literature search, identified 33 programs around the world that had proven effective with this young adult group who had serious mental illness. None of those 33 programs were in Canada. And when the board took a look at all the research, visited 3 programs in the States, identified the Gould Farm, who had been around for 108 years and had years and years of evaluative research saying this program worked in the long term, in the long run, helped these young adults live healthier, more productive lives after they had been through the program. I went and I visited Gould Farm and I was sold on it. And that's when I came back and I started working for Ellie's Place. And I said, yes, I will help you make this program a dream. And if it wasn't for COVID, we'd probably be close to opening up today. Unfortunately, COVID has slowed us down a little bit, but in another couple of years, I'm sure Ellie's Place will be opening its doors for its first group of guests.
I think so too. I didn't know that you had gone to Gould Farm. That's really cool.
I went to Gould Farm and I arrived there in a snowstorm and I had dinner with everybody else. And the next day I went out on a work program because part of Gould Farm is part of its recovery program is they called the residents or clients guests, and all the guests work during the day, Monday to Friday, on work programs out on the farm. And they learn how to deal with their mental health challenges while they're working, so that when they come back to their regular life, they've learned how to integrate their mental health challenges into their everyday life. So I went out on, it was in early spring, but there was a snowstorm, and I went out with a group of guests and on a work program. We were hanging tins on maple trees to collect the maple syrup, because it was just in the beginning of spring, and maple syrup was going to start flowing as soon as the temperature rose in the next couple of days. So I spent the day hanging tins and chatting with the guests and learning about their lives and learning about how the work program was helping them. And it was a real eye opener to see how, in a hands-on way, the program actually worked.
Very cool. Well, that sounds like quite the experience and leads well to my next question, which
Okay.
is any other highlights in the role that you want to share with us?
Any other highlights? Well, we're so close to making Ellis Place a dream. As we start coming out of COVID, the goal of the board is to buy a property as soon as possible. And they're beginning to reach out and speak to donors about that. And once a property is bought, to get it rezoned, there's an architect that has offered his services pro bono to help design the buildings. We already have the floor plans for the buildings, the houses that the individuals will live in, and the main program community hub with all the program space in it. And the architect will take our initial drawings with all the rooms that are needed and turn them into real buildings on paper. And as the board starts to raise money with a capital campaign cabinet, start to raise money to build the buildings. And once that's done, we'll open the doors. So I do see the vision coming to life probably in a couple of years from now.
Very nice. And then any words of encouragement for the team at Ellie's Place?
Any words of encouragement? Well, to Emma, I've never worked with a more passionate, more involved group of volunteers who are dedicated to making a dream come true. That includes the Peer Advisory Council that you helped us set up, our Professional Advisory Council, and all the volunteers on our committees and our board, as well as those that have expressed interest to join our capital campaign. Although we're always looking for more individuals that would be willing to help us make the capital campaign successful in a really quick, short order. But the volunteers are just so dedicated. All I can do is say, I look forward to seeing your dream come true really quickly. And I'll be on the sidelines, although I won't be the executive director. We've announcement will coming out really shortly on my replacement. And the individual is really excited to step into my shoes and to help the dream come true. I know it will happen, and I'll be on the sidelines, probably working as a volunteer for Ellie's Place in the future, in areas where I can help out, probably on building design and property acquisition, areas like that. But I do wish everybody the best of successes in the shortest time possible, so that we can make Ellie's Place come real very soon, so individuals could start benefiting from an incredibly exciting, innovative program.
Awesome, thank you. And then in terms of your future plans, do you have any plans post this? I know you've written a book about pro-retirement, so is this it? Are you really retiring?
Well, I retired 5.5 years ago, and part of my retirement has been working part-time, and Ellie's Place has been the center of that focus. I also do pro-retirement workshops, helping people develop their pro-retirement life plans. And I guess the biggest change in my pro-retirement life is I'm no longer, except for my workshops on pro-retirement, I'm no longer going to be working. I'm going to be spending my time doing things with my family, with my 3 grandchildren, with my wife. We want to do some traveling once COVID is over. We're also looking at starting up a podcast where we can interview people about all different interesting aspects of life, that things that capture our imagination. We'll probably be launching that in the fall, and doing some volunteer work, probably for Ellie's Place, maybe some other groups. Getting back to painting, which I haven't done in about 20 years. Looking forward to that. And just doing lots of fun things, exercising and spending time with friends and family.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. As someone who's currently pursuing my MSW and wants to work in the mental health field, all of the time that we've had together has just been absolutely phenomenal, and I've learned so much. And I think the entire team at Ellie's Place would feel the same way. Your knowledge and your wisdom is much appreciated. And I wish you all the best with all your pro-tirement endeavors. I'm really looking forward to this podcast. It sounds amazing. And I'm sure we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you so much, Emma. Good luck to you as well.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.